Hey guys, R.V.F here. I'm here with the first video in a new series that I'm making, and that is the Versus series. So in this, I'll basically take two characters, pretty much always fictional, and I'll analyze them to see who would win if they were to ever come together and meet in a fight. So for this episode, as you'll see from the title, it is Hitgirl versus Dick Grayson, or the first Robin. So yeah. One little side note. The rest of the audio for this video, up until the very end, was recorded a long time ago. And I mean a long time ago, like several months, maybe even like a year ago. So this is a very old video that I've kind of been wanting to make for a while. So I sound quite different, I sound much more choppy. But yeah, I'm not going to go through and re-record all the audio. It's still pretty good quality. So yeah, just if you notice that I sound different, that's why. Yeah, other than that, enjoy.
During this Versus series, I'll be examining Dick Grayson before he becomes Nightwing, when he first becomes Robin. I will also be judging Hitgirl from the first Kick-Ass movie, just after Big Daddy's death and just before she teams up with Kick-Ass to invade Frank D'Amico's building. Basically, I'll be examining the two when they're around the same age. I will also be taking all information on Robin from the comics and potentially the cartoons, but not from the movies. I'll be taking the information for Hitgirl from the Kick-Ass movies, as I am very familiar with these, and the abilities vary little from comic to screen. However, while the movies and comic book abilities of Hitgirl are similar, the backstories are different. For Hitgirl's backstory, I'll be drawing on the movies, as, once again, I am more familiar with these. Hitgirl, also known as Mindy McCready, was a young girl raised by a superhero vigilante named Big Daddy. Big Daddy trained Mindy from a very young age to be an excellent fighter, turning her into a lethal assassin by the age of 10. Big Daddy and Hitgirl would work together to overcome and destroy a powerful criminal organization led by mob boss Frank D'Amico. Hitgirl would soon meet and become relatively friendly with the rookie, somewhat wannabe superhero known as Kick-Ass. She would also attempt a friendship with the superhero Red Mist. However, she would be betrayed by the superhero, as he turned out to be the son of the head mobster that Big Daddy and Hitgirl were trying so hard to defeat. While Hitgirl was able to survive the attack and avoid capture, Big Daddy would not be so lucky, as he was abducted by the mobsters and heavily tortured. Kick-Ass would also be captured and subjected to the same torture. Hitgirl broke in to rescue the two. She saved Kick-Ass, but could not manage the same with her father. Afterwards, she teamed up with Kick-Ass to take down Frank D'Amico. After breaking into his building and slaughtering all of his men, Hitgirl attacked Frank, while Kick-Ass fought the Red Mist. While Kick-Ass and Red Mist beat each other unconscious at the exact same time, Hitgirl was ultimately defeated by Frank, who turned out to be a master of martial arts. But just as he was going to end her life, she was rescued by Kick-Ass, armed with a bazooka. Kick-Ass killed Frank by shooting him out a window where he exploded in mid-air. Afterwards, Hitgirl's story did continue, but this is all that is relevant for this battle. Born to an acrobatic family known as the Flying Graysons, Dick would spend the first part of his life assisting his parents in their circus show. However, he would be tragically forced to watch as the Mafia shot down his parents, in an attempt to extort money from the circus where they were being employed. Soon after his parents' death, Dick would be adopted by the billionaire Bruce Wayne, who just so happened to be the famous Batman. As Dick was now Bruce's son, he soon discovered Batman's secret identity. Afterwards, Bruce would begin to train Dick, turning him into Robin, his new apprentice. Obviously, Robin's story goes far, far longer than this, but this is the time span that shall be used for this battle. Hitgirl had highly above average levels of strength and durability for a girl of her young age, able to knock out and take hits from full-grown adults, despite being around 11 years old. Despite her clearly advanced abilities in strength and durability, this is not where she focuses in her fighting style. Hitgirl relies instead on her speed and agility over her strength, preferring to duck around her enemies and kill them quickly, rather than engage them in a prolonged battle. She is so fast and agile she is able to dodge bullets, as long as they are fired from a distance. This is mainly due to the fact that she has often had to take down several opponents at once, rather than having to take on one more powerful combatant. Robin is rather similar to Hitgirl in many of these areas, mainly his focus of speed, agility, and acrobatics over his abilities in strength and durability. He would usually jump around his opponents, using his speed and agility to overwhelm them. Often taking on swarms of enemies at a time, he would also have to take down many opponents in very short periods of time, relying on his acrobatics and speed to do so. Robin was also seen taking physical hits on a frequent basis, yet he is usually able to get back up. However, despite his reluctance to use it, Robin received heavy strength-based training. He was trained by Batman after all, so this makes a lot of sense, due to Bruce's own reliance of brute force. Both combatants are at peak physical condition, easily towering over others of their age. They both used a mixture of strength, speed, and agility to overwhelm opponents, moving too fast to be hit and hitting hard enough to take their enemies down. However, Hitgirl was trained to be a fast-moving target who could quickly kill, and for that reason, she didn't necessarily require the same strength-based training that Robin received. While he didn't outmuscle his opponents so much, Robin's superior strength is noticeable and reinforces his other abilities, allowing his quick strikes to deal more damage. For this reason, I have to award the physical edge to Robin. Hitgirl has little to no hand-to-hand martial arts feats. However, she has been trained ever since she was a young child in the art of murder, so it's quite obvious that she would have extensive unarmed training. Another good justification for her abilities in hand-to-hand fighting is that she trained Kick-Ass, who ended up being able to hold his own against multiple opponents at once. The reason we never see her using these skills is likely due to her personal fighting style, which has a heavy reliance of using lethal weapons rather than her bare hands. In close quarters combat, she would use large numbers of short, smaller knives in order to slash at her enemies, using her blades to either spell a quick end for her enemies or dismember and torture them. Her preferred short-range weapon was her blade staff, basically a long staff with blades attached to each end. She would use this to lethal proficiency. One of her preferred range weapons was her rope dart, basically a knife attached to a long string. She would frequently throw the knife out towards the opponent and then use the string to pull them back towards her when it had stabbed them. After this, she would finish them off with a quick stab of her knife. She also had a special talent with various pistols, using them at a distance or potentially even up close. But she clearly highly preferred blades, whether for the conservation of ammo or for her own personal love of maiming her victims with sharper weapons. She also has a talent for throwing bladed weapons at her opponents. She is effectively an expert marksman at both thrown bladed weapons and pistols. However, if she is outnumbered beyond her ability or she is fighting an equal in combat, she will resort to her pistols to either kill or severely injure her enemies to put her at an edge. She rarely attempts to incapacitate her foes and leave them alive, preferring instead to violently murder anyone or anything that gets in her way. She is a brutal and unforgiving warrior who is not to be taken lightly. Dick Grayson has been heavily trained by arguably the greatest martial artist in the history of the DC Universe, the Dark Knight himself, Batman. He has been trained in many different unarmed fighting styles. He's very good at going up against several thugs at once, and even entire rooms of armed guards. However, many of the times he took on enemies like that, he had the assistance of Batman. Despite this, he was certainly able to take on enemies by himself, though it is notable that he does have extreme difficulty going up against single but skilled opponents, the most notable example being his battles against Deathstroke. But this can be attributed to the fact that Deathstroke is an extremely advanced fighter who can even match Batman in physical combat. He also has a basically sole reliance on his unarmed abilities in physical combat, and he has practically no ability to work weapons into his fighting style. Despite his large array of gadgets, these gadgets are generally wielded to distract enemies and boost his stealth abilities. He prefers to go with purely hand-to-hand combat. However, his mastery of unarmed combat is not to be underestimated. As the first and arguably the best out of Batman's sidekicks, his skills in unarmed combat are amongst the best. While they both have amazing combative abilities, and this is in truth a very close match, I do feel as if we can draw a definitive edge. It's arguable that Robin has more pure skill. He has trained under a far more competent mentor, has had far more practical battle experience. However, his skill is only slightly higher than Hitgirl's, and this marginal skill benefit does not cover up for where Robin falls short in comparison to the competition. Where Robin falls short when put side by side with Hitgirl is in his use of specific measures of combat, mainly in the fact that he only uses his bare fists and feet in the middle of a one-on-one battle. While Robin relies on his fists, Hitgirl uses a large number of weaponry to combat her enemies. This makes her attack far more brutal and dangerous, and while I do believe that Robin is skilled enough to dodge and block most of her attacks, he'll eventually get hit by something, and that one hit will be enough to slowly wear him down and eventually take him out of the fight. Hitgirl gets the comfortable edge in her combative abilities. Hitgirl is a brutal and violent individual, loving the thrill of battle and the feeling of ending a life. She would almost always rush into battle and overwhelm her opponents in a large flurry of assaults. However, she was not an idiot. She would often plan her attacks ahead of time, especially if she was going up against a large number of opponents. This was demonstrated by the way she took an extended period of time to work out Frank D'Amico's building before attacking. However, she would generally just figure out the area, where to enter the perimeter and where to go. Other than that, she would fall back on her overwhelming assault. The downside is, if that doesn't work against her opponents, she visibly struggles. A prime example being her fight against Mother Russia. However, she always finds a way out, and has managed to at least survive every conflict she's been in, which is saying a lot due to what she's been through. Robin is far smarter than the average child of his age. He's an accomplished detective and strategist, often finding a way to outsmart any opponents that he could not overwhelm or outmaneuver. He was always looking for an edge, always looking a way to outdo his foes. If none of this would work, he would often take after his mentor and resort to stealth. Whenever he did this, it would always be very difficult to locate or detect him, let alone defeat him. The main way he would utilize stealth would be avoiding an opponent until he had the opportunity to analyze the situation, or take multiple people out one by one. He would initially escape a combat scenario by distracting his opponent with a smoke pellet and grappling away to a high ledge, or just forgetting the pellet and grappling away anyway. When up there, he would stalk and prey on his frightened and confused opponents, before taking them down one by one, a tactic similar to that of his adopted father. He would also often prepare for his fights ahead of time, trying to get the advantage over the enemy before the battle even started. This is not limited to simply examining the perimeter. He would analyze the opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and would adjust his gadgets and fighting style to exploit this. While they're at least both competent at preparation, this battle would be a random encounter, giving them absolutely no time to prepare ahead of time. So this round will be decided on how well they can work on the fly, how well they can think on their feet. Having said that, this round's pretty obvious. Hitgirl never really thinks before attacking, relying on her overwhelming abilities and weaponry to get her through the fight. However, if this does not work for her, she'll fall to her opponent. Robin, on the other hand, is a very strategic fighter. If he cannot defeat his opponent outright, maybe he can find a chink in the armor, a weakness he can exploit. If he cannot find a chink, he will fall back on his stealth abilities. However, in this scenario, stealth would not serve him well. Hitgirl has been shown to be in possession of night vision goggles, allowing her to see opponents that could otherwise hide from her. If Robin does go on a stealthy approach, she would easily be able to locate him. Despite this, Robin's strategic mind and cool head in a fight puts him above Hitgirl in this regard. Robin gets the comfortable edge in his tactical ability. This match really is perfect, and it would be an amazing fight to watch. Both combatants would give it their all, sticking it out until the end and fighting until their last breath. Their physical abilities are basically the same, but Robin has a leg up from his pure strength as well as his speed. While Robin was trained by the legendary Batman, Hitgirl has the far greater set of weaponry, and all her hits would be lethal. And while Hitgirl is no idiot, Robin is practically a genius, and always has a calm mind on the battlefield, allowing him to easily outsmart the competition. This would not be an easy battle in any sense of the word. However, I can still make out a decisive victor. So let's set up this fight. Let's say it takes place in a Gotham museum in the dead of night. As a final assessment, I say the advantage to the victor would go 8 to 10. Keep in mind that, despite the percentage being very high in favor of the victor, this is in no way a stomp, or even an easy victory. This would be a very long and drawn out battle, and the victor would have a very difficult time in any of these fights. The tally simply shows that, no matter how far the close might be, the same person would almost certainly win. That being said, this is an example of one majority victory. It is clear that Hitgirl would immediately go on the offensive, swinging her blade around in high arches, aiming for an early decapitation on her opponent. At first, Robin would easily be able to evade, ducking around her strikes, rendering them useless. However, he would be unable to land a strike on her. Whenever he tried, she would either dodge or swing out at his arm with her blade, forcing him to retrieve his hand before he loses it. Robin would continue to duck around Hitgirl's strikes, knowing that one good hit could lead to his end. This is when he would begin to think tactically. He would realize that Hitgirl seemed to be heavily reliant on her short-range combat. He would leap backwards, throwing a shuriken out while he did. Hitgirl would easily bat this aside with her blade, and leap towards Robin, continuing the onslaught. Once again, Robin would retreat, this time using the grappling hook to get high ground, and continuing the attack with shurikens. However, Hitgirl would easily evade and block the incoming projectiles. At the same time, she would withdraw her own gun. After making a witty remark, she would begin to fire at Robin, quickly emptying an entire clip of ammunition in the attack. With very little difficulty, Robin would jump around most of the bullets. Realizing she was well equipped to deal with long-range combat, he would fall back on his stealth skills. He would throw a smoke pellet directly at Hitgirl's feet. Stunned by the unexpected attack, Hitgirl chokes on the smoke that is rapidly spilling out of the tiny pellet. But she would quickly recover, working around the smoke and preparing another clip to unleash at the boy wonder. But when she looks up, he's gone. Immediately realizing what he was doing, Hitgirl would go on the defensive, staring around the museum for her opponent. Realizing she could not locate him with only her bare eyes, she would pull out her night vision goggles. Staring around, it would only take a few seconds to locate where Robin was perched. Hitgirl would try and play it smart, turning to another direction, acting as if she did not notice where Robin was. But this would be a fake-out, as she would quickly spin and fire a bullet directly at Robin's heart. Robin would realize this just a second too late. He would leap out of the way, and while the bullet would miss his heart, it would hit his leg. Robin would yell out in pain, dropping his grappling hook and falling hard to the floor, coughing up blood. This is the opening that Hitgirl was waiting for. Streaming towards Robin, she resumes her brutal assault. Robin would know he didn't stand a chance against her attack, and would fight clever. He would retrieve another smoke pellet, throwing it at Hitgirl's face like a shuriken. Instinctively, she would raise her blade to block the projectile, but instead of bouncing off her blade harmlessly, it would explode. The smoke would daze and surprise Hitgirl, but the goggles that she was still wearing would shield her eyes. However, it would give Robin the momentary distraction that he would require. Grabbing his grappling hook once more, he would level it at Hitgirl's chest and fire. The hook would latch onto the young girl's chest, breaking the skin and drawing blood. Robin would then be pulled in towards Hitgirl, and he would use the momentum to deliver a powerful shoulder charge directly to her face, smashing her night vision goggles and sending her flying backwards. Moving quickly, Robin draws one of the knives from Hitgirl's belt, and against his better morals, swiftly thrusts it into the girl's shoulder. This time, it is Hitgirl's turn to yell and cough up blood. However, she would not be out of the fight yet. Drawing on the last of her strength, Hitgirl would jump towards Robin. Robin would not be able to fend her off in his weakened state, and would be caught in Hitgirl's grasp. Clutching onto her foe, Hitgirl would draw one of her remaining pistols, press it up against Robin's gut, and pull the trigger. The bullet would rupture Robin's stomach, sending him crashing onto his back. he would still be alive, but only barely. With Robin wheezing on the ground, unable to move, Hitgirl would raise her pistol, point it directly between Robin's eyes, and once again pull the trigger. And thus I declare Hitgirl, Mindy McCready, the broken, bruised, and bloodied, but surviving victor.
So there you have it. That was Hitgirl vs. Robin. So what do you think? Leave a comment, like, and sub if you liked it. So yeah, there you go. As always, I'm R.V.F, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.